were they what was entrepreneurship spirit that they were actually like exhibiting, and how that these things actually affect our modern world, and the reason we're doing that, is that we need to know where we're coming from to be able to appreciate where we are and to be able to make projections into the future. All right, so you're welcome once again to the Unity Africa talk show. Today, specifically, we are starting with Yoruba land, right? So we're going to take a look at, okay, what is Yoruba land all about? How did we get here, right? And so, having said that, I think that it will make a lot of sense, right, if we can take a brief history, right? Of the origins, of the of Yoruba land. So at this point, I'm a summary of the history of the principles that they engaged in entrepreneurship, and see how we can proceed with the conversation. To be the only one in the studio, talking, right? I want you to engage, so please put your thoughts in the comment session, like this page, subscribe, and ask questions. Let's participate, let's build this community, and let's make this work, right? Let's make it as engaging as possible. Hello everyone. This is quite embarrassing, considering the fact that I keep starting and I keep getting cut off, by by the network. I'm not even so sure at before I was kicked out from the studio that because of network. I did mention that we started on Unity Africa Talk Show. We started this series. What we essentially going to be looking at is we're looking at the pre-colonial states, right? That it is really, really important for us to take that journey into the past, so that we can appreciate where we are and make projections into the conversation. We are going to be looking at the Yoruba people, Yoruba land, right? And how they used to do business, and what kind of principles we can extrapolate from their history and apply it to modern times, and how we can move forward as entrepreneurs. And I also did mention that it makes sense, right, to do a brief history, like of the Yoruba people, what they're about, and I'm going to quickly read through the history of Yoruba people. Then when we are done with that, we can start looking at what the principles are. What you've joined this conversation. Please put your comments, there. I will recognize them. I'll work. And please, subscribe if you've not subscribe to Unity Africa Talk Show, and also share, so that we can have that buoyant conversation. All right. So back to the early origins and the mythical beginnings of the Yoruba people. The Yoruba people trace their origins to the ancient city of Ile-Ife, believed to be their spiritual and cultural cradle. According to Yoruba myth, the progenitor of the Yoruba tribe. This myth was both divine and political. Now, having said that, the governance system was both divine and political. Of course, societies developed, and so there was rise of kingdoms and city states. So by the 11th century, the Yoruba had established several city states, each governed by an Oba. An Oba is the king, right? So these city states, of course, including Ile-Ife, including Oyo and Ijebu, developed intricate governance systems where the Oba ruled with the assistance of the Council of Chiefs. Now, this system balanced central authority with local autonomy, right? Allowing for effective governance across different regions. Just like the saying goes that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's interesting to know that, right from the beginning of time, interest of the people to put all power in the hands of one person, right? There was system of government. All right, so back to Ileife. Ileife, known as the center of religious and cultural life. Ife was also a hub for artisans, particularly in bronze and in a terracotta sculpture, which became significant trade items, with time. Now, the Oyo Empire. Of course, the Oyo Empire too is Yoruba land, right? The Oyo Empire, emerging around powerful military strength, administrative efficiency, and expansive trade net actually existed in Ife, in Oyo, and way back before the advent of the colonial masters, right? The Yoruba people were deeply involved in various economic activities, which were supported by their governance structures, just like I did mention earlier, right? So there was the Oba, and of course there were also like you know, he had his counselors, people that also ruled with him. So all powers were not like just invested in one person. So beyond just the economic activities and trade networks, one thing that really stood out, and still stand out, is that it's agriculture. The Yoruba, people were skilled farmers, cultivating crops like yams, maize, and kola nuts. So these products were not only staples, but also trade goods that linked them to other regions. So Yoruba people were into agriculture, they were growing food for food, and not just food crops, but they were also growing agricultural products that they could actually also sell to neighboring nations, as it were. So, having talked about agriculture, let's delve into craftsmanship. Cities, like Ife and Oyo, became renowned for their artisans, particularly in metal is what we have in Ghana, called the popular kente, besides just the ashoke, there was also poetry. So part of the things that they were we've talked about the fact that Yoruba people were into agriculture, they were into craftsmanship, they were really, really skilled, and they were using their hands to do, wonderful things. It became necessary, right, that if you're producing, then you need to establish trade routes, because you don't just produce for yourself. Even if you produce for yourself, you get to a point of saturation where, you need to like go beyond your little locality. So they also established like trade routes. So the Yoruba people engaged in extensive trade with neighboring peoples, including the Nupe, the Bogu, and the Hausa people. They were also part of the trans-Saharan trade. I'm going to please have a listen to a brief history of the Yoruba people. Let's see if you have any comments, if you have any reflections. Please have the conversation. So now let's the conversation start, as it were. Any reflections? Any reflections? Seki, virtual assistant, help so that they can focus on the core of their job. Interesting, interesting. Thank you so much, Elizabeth Watson, for joining. She says great insight already. Thank you so much. I would like to let's take a look at some of the lessons what involved in the apply in the modern world so that my network is shaky. Let's take a look at some of the principles, experience and make projections from there. If you're just joining, we are looking at the Yoruba series that we are going to be having, and the essence of this series is essentially to look at the nations. There's what kind of trade were they into, what kind of were they entrepreneurial people, what kind of governance did they have, and how did our present day societies and how can we actually make projections into the future. Now, the Yoruba people, we've looked at some of the things that they are into. We've looked at they also established trade routes. It will be interesting to also the principles that we can extrapolate. It will also be to be nice to mention that okay, the laughing of your know too was also a king and just one single person. The balance between the Alafi and the Oyo Macy, also ensured a stable government, preventing the concentration of power. In the Yoruba nation state, as it were, we also have of of our time of modern Nigeria. We also had military organizations. So the Oyo Empire had a well-organized military that not only defended the empire but also expanded its territories, bringing more resources and wealth into the fold. Now, when you read through and when we consider our history or the history of the Yoruba people, you realize that it is not so much different from what we have. The principles are the same, a bit kind of a bit different in the sense that okay, the principles are the same, but like maybe they're a bit modernized, if I could use that expression, right? So what are some of the historical practices of the Yoruba land, or Yoruba people, and how did they find expression in our modern day society? So let's talk about community, and collaboration. Community and collaboration. All right. Um, um, oh yeah. So finally, I'm able to see the comment. So Mr. Kenneth Igiri just commented, what are your thoughts on manufacturing, if I may call it that? All right, all right. So that is the first question from Mr. Kenneth. The second um, comments over and over. And the tie and dye metal work and all. Oh, okay. So I think that um, um, Mr. Kenneth is saying, what are your thoughts on manufacturing, if I may call it? So looking at that, really, in in, in modern times, there are certain are good with art. If you can, if you can create, you know um like go into it, and it's, I must really say that whatever your talent is, you need to build because into the structures that existed in our history, will be better. We will be in a position to better appreciate that. Okay, the things that we actually like adore in modern times like this have actually existed. So yeah, balance of power actually like existed even in Yoruba land pre-colonial days. So the issue about, okay, um, um, governance as we have it, where we have the head of state or the president, we have house rep, and and the different balance of powers didn't just start That's the point. It didn't just start today. Yeah. So I'd like to also like, please let's keep commenting. Let's keep putting our thoughts in. Okay, so I'm going to work on the assumption that I'm still life and community. As an entrepreneur, you have to intentionally build a community. When you're just starting, right? Nobody succeeds alone, and nobody can succeed as an island. So you intentionally build a community, that will serve as a support system, as an entrepreneur. Now, the next thing that we can actually, which I would like us to look at, is governance and leadership, right? I did mention, when I was doing the overview of Yoruba land, that there was the politically speaking, there was the Oba, which is the king, and of course, he didn't just rule alone, because Yoruba people, even in prehistoric times, knew that, okay, it wasn't safe for the people to concentrate all powers in one single person, and so that there was decentralization of powers. So historical. So what is the historical principle that we can bring out from governance and ethical leadership? um Yoruba governance was, characterized by a balance of power, where the Oba showed justice within the community. So how does that really apply to governance? So in modern times, we will hear things like, there's ethical leadership, where we talk about transparency, where we talk about accountability, where we talk about, um, accountability, basically, everybody not just doing your own thing, but checking whatever you're doing with other people, and being transparent to you need to um, imbibe the principle of accountability. You need to have people, maybe in your community, the community that you have formed, you need to have people that you're accountable to. If um you may even spend your don't have people that you're accountable to, so they start a business, and they just put their hands into their profit, and then before you know it, like, they are looking for um how they can about it. So you have to intentionally build community. Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth, for that comment. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. So I was talking about, excuse me, I was talking about leadership, governance, and the fact that as a young entrepreneur, right, accountability and transparency is one of the things that you need to really, look at, because sometimes, because you are your own orga, or you're your own boss, if you don't have people that you're transparent to and accountable to, there are high tendencies that you will, instead of expanding your business, your business will be shrinking because you can be deceived to think that, oh yeah, I've got some money, I made some sales, let me just put my hand into it. But then if you have someone that you're financially accountable to, you're going to be asked questions, even if with regards to, okay, this money that you want to spend, why do you want to spend it? Why do you want to is this the right time for you to spend it? Do you have to put part of it to do you have to save part of it? So please, as a young entrepreneur, it is very important to look at accountability, find accountability partners, that your business, or your startup is accountable to. Very important, building, whether you're at the basic stage as an entrepreneur, you need to implement, start building up structures, that can promote checks and balances, and I'm hammering this because it is something that is more like a trick, when you're your own boss and you don't intentionally set up structures that can promote check and balances. Nobody's going to check anything for you. You're going to make your own decisions. You're going to spend your money the way you feel like they should be spent, and you may really make mistakes and probably make it difficult for you, make it more difficult to really, really important. Another principle, but before we look at the third principle, please, if you're just tuning in, this is a Unity Africa talk show, and prehistoric nations of Africa, and we are focusing today on the on Yoruba land, looking specifically at governance, looking specifically at entrepreneurship, how they um, how they engaged in trade, and the reason we are doing this is hello. So this the because of the network, right? Before I got kicked out from the studio, I was talking about specialization, and I did mention that it's really, really important for us to, as young entrepreneurs, to really create a niche for ourselves, because the interesting thing really, about specialization is that it helps you to, focus on on a niche, know, it helps you to concentrate from Yoruba land, So as an entrepreneur, right, when people see your product, right, are they able to link something specific to you, more or less like you becoming your product and your product becoming you, So um, industries like weaving, for instance, metal work, and pottery, Yoruba people were doing everything, but there were certain things that they were known for, and I think that if you want to apply that in, to our modern day society, we'll say that specialization remains a key principle to be able to stand out. Because why is it important for us to stand out? very important for us to stand out because you an edge, in a very competitive market. Um, okay, so Elizabeth says that this has been quite insightful. I'm looking forward to more of this. Oh my goodness. So I've actually been on mute for for quite a long time. And I've been clicking on the mute button and it wasn't even how many people have actually patronized you on your WhatsApp, how many people when you are adding friends on Facebook, do you just add people that the network has been very terrible, and I get kicked out every now and then. So we have been having a wonderful conversation, right? And I did mention earlier, from the beginning that we are going to have this series, and this series essentially we're going to be looking at the um, the prehistoric African nations, right? How societies were before nations, along the lines of what kind of trade and entrepreneurship that we were into, and what kind of governance that we were into. And today's conversation, we who they are, how did they come to be, right? And we looked at we delved a bit into the different the fact that even right from our forefathers, if I can use that expression, right? They understood the fact that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so in the case of even the Oba, who was like the leader, or the Oba didn't rule alone. He had there were checks and balances, as it were, and I also talked about the fact that the Yoruba people, I talked about the fact that they were also into pottery, and um, they were not just producing for themselves, but then they also created an environment where they could take whatever they were producing in their locality to other parts. And I also did mention that from prehistoric Yoruba land, and or Yoruba nation, and how can we apply those principles even in the modern world, our modern day society. So I think the first thing that we talked about community based collaboration, um, um, co- community based collaboration, and the fact that this family, to church members, or but there has to be a community that you're confident you're going to sell your product to, and that's exactly what the Yoruba people in prehistoric Nigeria actually had. So there was community-based um, as a young entrepreneur under leadership, I remember we talked about transparency and accountability, and I also remember saying that it's tricky because as an entrepreneur you're your own boss, and so if you don't intentionally um, make yourself intentionally submit yourself to accountability, then there's a high chance that you may not be able to grow as fast as you should because it's your money, right? So if you feel like it, you just put your hand into it, but then when you're accountable to specific people, who know what they are doing in business, then they can tell you that, okay, don't put take this particular is that as a young entrepreneur, right, don't go solo, have a community, and also exhibit people that you are actually like they are accountable to, that will be very, very essential if you really want to grow. I also did mention Nigeria among the Yoruba people, and that it is really Yoruba people were known for certain things. They were known for pottery, they were known for weaving, and I think I did mention the ashoke. They were known for metal work, right? And also like bring it into contemporary times. I did mention that, hey, in modern times, right? You need to specialize. I talked about the benefits of specialization. As a young, I'm talking about, putting in the comment section, talking about niche, like have a niche, and that the benefit of having a niche as a young entrepreneur is that it helps you to be deep, then you can expand. There's this popular saying, that if you want to catch 10 rabbits at the same time, you may not even catch one of them, but if you catch one, keep the one in a cage. The idea is that in specialization you need to have a particular service that you want to break into the market with, break even, with, before you look at other things, right? And that when you do that, you are able to build skills, specific skills that put you even on a global scale. When you do that, you're able to like have more details which can help you to like improve on your brand. I also remember that we talked about being strategic in your network, and I think that was the last thing that we were talking about before the network cut me off. Being strategic, in your net um, treasure much treasure for the. I was saying that it seems like every time I say anything about network, the network cuts me off. But essentially, I was talking about the fact that being strategic about your network, right? And that your network determines your net worth, right? And that if you, as basic as WhatsApp is, who are the people that you are that I, and because I also recognize the fact that some of us, put our products out there on 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 WhatsApp, right? You know, right. So, um, we need to be very, very intentional about the kind of the people that are in our network, right? Because eventually it's going to determine the level of demand, that is going to be placed upon whatever services or products that we have. So I think that whilst we have this conversation, it's very, very important. It will be very important and necessary for you to like reflect, right? Who are the people that you have in your network? And I so did mention earlier that you know there are situations where you have a product or you have a service, because most times we are forced to keep reducing the price, the, the point of even selling at a loss. We may probably have to now start intentionally um, start looking at, okay, who are the people who are patronizing me? Maybe I need to launch into the deep, for a bigger catch. Maybe I need to go to where the big players are. If I have to improve, my product, if I have to improve on my skills, to be able to play where the the big players are, by every means, I need to do that so that you can start, Hello, welcome back. So, yeah, so welcome back. I think at this point, you know, so if you have been following this conversation, I would like to say a very big thank you for tuning in broadcast. I like to encourage every one of us to, subscribe. Before we wrap up,